In the early 15th century, English knight Henry Percy, known as Hotspur, leads a rebellion against nearby kingdoms. After winning another battle against the Scots, Hotspur asks the king to pay the ransom Wales demands for his cousin, but the king refuses, calling it unnecessary trouble. Hotspur loses his temper, insults the king, and reminds him of his family's long service before storming out. Meanwhile, Prince Henry lives quietly in town, pretending to be a commoner named Hal. He avoids politics and the throne, spending his days with women or drinking with his friend John Falstaff, a retired knight. One afternoon, a messenger arrives to say the king is sick and wants to see him. Henry refuses at first, but John later convinces him that ignoring his father will haunt him forever. Henry finally visits the king, who tells him what he feared. Even though Henry is the oldest son, he will not inherit the throne. It will go to his brother Thomas instead. The king knows Henry has no desire for the crown, but he feels obligated to tell him the truth directly. Henry accepts the decision, but he becomes upset when he learns Thomas will march against Hotspur the next day. He thinks the younger generation shouldn't inherit their father's conflicts, but Thomas ignores his concern. That night, Henry can't enjoy himself because he keeps worrying about Thomas risking his life. The next day, he goes to the battlefield to see his brother. Thomas is annoyed he showed up, but Henry doesn't care. He isn't trying to take his glory, he only wants to keep him alive. Henry sends a messenger to Hotspur, challenging him to single combat, and Hotspur accepts even though his father disapproves. Both men are highly skilled, so the duel is evenly matched. They start with swords, then lose them and continue with hand-to-hand combat. After a long struggle, Henry tackles Hotspur and kills him with a dagger he had hidden. Henry's victory prevents a massive battle and saves countless lives. But Thomas isn't grateful. He was supposed to prove himself as a leader, and now he feels Henry has taken all the glory. Burdened by the guilt of killing a man, Henry goes back to his drinking life until the king's chief justice, Sir William Gascoigne, visits him a few days later. Thomas has died in battle, and the king is now on his deathbed, so Henry must return to the palace before the kingdom slips into chaos without a leader. Still furious over his brother's death, Henry goes to see his father and calls him a monster just moments before the old man dies, leaving the kingdom to him. While preparations for the coronation begin, servants go to Henry's house to collect his belongings. John is thrown out and only learns what happened from the servants, never getting a chance to see Henry before the big day. The coronation takes place smoothly. During the celebratory dinner, Henry opens gifts from other rulers. He receives a gold chalice, which he gives to his sister, Queen Philippa of Denmark, and a clockwork bird, which he hands to his cousin, the Earl of Cambridge. The last gift is unexpected. The Dauphin of France sends him a simple ball with no message. Henry decides to keep it as a reminder of the carefree boy he once was. The next day, Gascoigne explains the ball is meant as an insult and suggests they respond, but Henry refuses to be provoked. He wants peace through conciliation, so he focuses on matters at home rather than escalating conflict with France. Later, as Henry spends time with Philippa before her departure, she warns him to be cautious. Court members always protect their own interests, and a king can never be certain who is trustworthy. The next day, the Archbishop of Canterbury tries to brief Henry on the French king's family line, in case he ever wants to claim their throne, but Henry quickly grows bored. He doesn't care about his father's ambitions. He has no plans to invade France or Jerusalem. His stance doesn't sit well with the nobles. After the meeting, Gascoigne praises Henry for caring about his people, but he also notes that ignoring France's provocations makes him appear weak. Meanwhile, John starts to see how difficult life is without the prince beside him. Tavern owners no longer treat him warmly, and now he has to pay for everything himself. When he mentions having powerful friends, the innkeeper replies that he has been abandoned like an old dog. Sometime later, Henry questions a prisoner who offers asylum in exchange for information. The man claims he is an assassin sent by the King of France to kill Henry. The nobles see this as a direct act of war, but Henry still refuses to be provoked. He sends a letter to the French king, calling the act cowardly and saying that if France wants war, he should send an army and face him openly. Henry's stance worries the nobles. The Earl of Cambridge and Lord Grey are soon approached by French agents who try to convince them to switch sides. Confused and losing faith in their king, they speak with Gascoigne for guidance. After assuring them he will handle it, Gascoigne warns Henry again that ignoring these problems will only make things worse. This is Henry's chance to unite the kingdom once and for all. Realizing he has little choice left, Henry finally agrees to go to war with France, treating the French agent's actions toward his nobles as the final insult. He orders the executions of Cambridge and Grey, disappointed that people he trusted were working with the enemy. Wanting someone loyal at his side, Henry goes to find John, who is still hurt after being ignored for so long. Henry apologizes, explaining how overwhelmed he has been, and tells John he needs him again. Henry wants him to serve as marshal and chief strategist. John agrees, but only if Henry pays his debt at the inn. Soon after, Henry and his army set sail for France. Shortly after landing, Henry and his men find an abandoned village and set up camp to build catapults for the attack on Harfleur. Henry wants to win through a siege to avoid early losses, but days pass with no progress. The nobles grow impatient, and the archbishop pushes for an assault. Henry refuses, and this time Gascoigne supports him, saying they need a stronghold to secure their supply lines from England. The plan eventually succeeds, and Harfleur surrenders. The town's leader asks only that the women and children be spared, and Henry grants mercy. Later, Louis, the Dauphin of France, visits and describes in graphic detail how he intends to destroy Henry and his army if they don't surrender. Henry admits the speech was dramatic, but simply wishes him good night and orders John to prepare the army to march. After many miles on the road, they camp again and send 3 young pages to gather wood. Louis finds them, kills 2, and sends the third back carrying a severed head as a warning. In response, Henry orders John to execute all the French prisoners and display their bodies on spikes by the river. John refuses, saying neither of them is that kind of man. The next day, Henry and his army march again until they reach the hills, where a horrifying sight waits for them. Louis' army, far larger than their own. The nobles urge Henry to retreat, but John steps forward with a plan. The open field between both armies forms a natural flood bowl, and John is certain it will rain tonight. His aching knee always predicts it. If the ground turns into deep mud, the French, with their heavy armor and mounted knights, will get stuck. Henry can send a small group as bait to draw the French forward, and once they sink into the bog, the rest of Henry's men, light, fast, and on foot, can rush in and overwhelm them. With Henry's skilled archers supporting the attack, their speed becomes a huge advantage. The nobles think the plan is foolish, but Henry trusts John. He agrees that if it rains overnight, they will fight in the morning. Luckily, the rain comes. At sunrise, the army prepares to carry out the strategy. Henry gets upset when he notices John preparing to lead the bait group, so he decides to visit Louis first and challenge him to single combat, just like he did with Hotspur. Louis refuses, confident in his larger forces, and hence that Henry is simply afraid to lose. Frustrated but resolute, Henry returns to his men, gives an inspiring speech, and then hides in the woods while the bait party steps into the open to begin the fight. Louis falls for the trap and sends half his army forward. They are immediately hit by Henry's archers and sink into the muddy bog, exactly as John predicted. John's group weakens them enough to slow their advance, and when Louis sends the rest of his troops, Henry and his armorless men charge in on foot. Everything goes according to plan, and Henry's army quickly gains the upper hand while the French struggle in the mud. When Louis finally realizes he is losing, he approaches Henry to request a duel. Henry refuses to fight a prince who can barely stay on his feet in the mud. Since Louis is humiliating himself, Henry lets his soldiers finish him instead. The army fully respects Henry after this decisive victory, but he has no time to enjoy it. He finds John's body on the battlefield and, devastated, orders all remaining prisoners to be killed before they can regroup. A few days later, the King of France meets with Henry and offers his surrender with one condition. Henry must marry his daughter, Princess Catherine of Valois. Joining their families would prevent future conflicts, so Henry agrees. They return to England, where the people eagerly wait for the wedding celebrations. Before appearing in public, Henry meets privately with Catherine. She tells him she won't simply submit to him and that he must earn her respect, but she also asks why he invaded France at all. Her family never sent an assassin, and they never sent the ball. Her father is a well-loved king who never wanted war. Henry remembers his sister's warning and grows suspicious, so he confronts Gascoigne about how he discovered the supposed assassin. Gascoigne's explanation is unclear and full of contradictions. When Henry asks how much Gascoigne's own power will grow now that France has been conquered, the man finally breaks. He confesses everything. He fabricated France's provocations and feels no remorse because he believes this outcome is what Henry truly wanted. In his mind, real peace comes only through victory, and now the two kingdoms are finally united. Gascoigne kneels, appealing to Henry's greatness, but Henry kills him instantly with a quick stab of his dagger. Afterward, Henry returns to Catherine and asks her to promise she will always be honest with him. She agrees as the crowd outside chants Henry's name. And with that, friends, this story comes to an end. Tell us in the comments how you liked the explanation. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.